Take a look at this photo of an onlooker, dressed in red with his back to the camera, looking out at a castle in Aberdeenshire, Scotland. Now take a look at this one. It's a photo of an onlooker, dressed in red, with his back to the camera, looking out at a lighthouse in Michigan. Now this one. An onlooker, dressed in red, with his back to the camera, looking out at Mount McKinley in Alaska. All of these photos were taken independently, but they all have the same basic features. When we start noticing these kinds of patterns, our brains start to perk up. What is the connection between these photos? If they weren't staged by the same person, then why does the pattern happen? There has to be a reason. And in this case, it might just be the fact that this is a great way to capture both beautiful scenery and a person in the same image while drawing our attention to both. James Bauer is the collector who first noticed this pattern in postcards. Vox did a great video on him that included the following quote.
When taken en masse, the differences get washed away and you get this sort of typology or this type that floats above the particulars beneath.
I think this pattern recognition is a helpful image for what this video essay will be doing. Rather than looking at just one or two movies, I'm going to skim through a bunch so that, just like with these photos, the particulars of each example will fall away and a pattern will come into focus. Because the pattern is what I want to talk about. We're going to look at why it's used, what it says about our desires for the world, and how Christianity addresses that desire. It's a thematic pattern I like to call the true king. Black Panther follows the new king of Wakanda, T'Challa, as he learns to lead his country against threats both foreign and domestic. He is crowned king early on in the film, and it is established that though he is a young ruler, he is merciful and good. T'Challa is the right king, the kind of person anybody would want on the throne, leading the country. Wakanda is shown to prosper when T'Challa is in charge. Conflict comes when a close family member, a cousin he didn't know he had, challenges his rule and overthrows T'Challa, throwing him out of his kingdom. The people follow Killmonger now, and he is shown to be a ruthless ruler, not the kind of person we want on the throne. He is a usurper. Hope is lost until T'Challa is revealed to be alive again. He now has to go back and reclaim his throne as the rightful ruler of the land. He returns, defeats the foreign yet familiar usurper, and takes his place as the true king of Wakanda. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes follows the king of the apes, Caesar. He is shown to be a good king who looks out for his people. Under his care, the apes have shelter, safety, even education. He has helped them build a good life. While the humans pose an apparent threat, the real threat is revealed to be far closer to home, a chimpanzee named Koba. The scarred chimp betrays Caesar, casts him out of his kingdom, and takes his place as the new ruler of the apes. He kills anybody that doesn't follow him and is an evil ruler. Hope is lost until Caesar is revealed to be alive. He now has to go back to defeat Koba. After casting out the usurper who was once his friend, Caesar takes his place as the true king of the apes. In Lion King, the kingdom thrives under the good king, who is then cast out and killed by his family. The new usurper is evil, and the kingdom suffers under his rule. The rightful ruler then must rise up to defeat the usurper, who then takes his place as the good and true king of the Pride Lands. In Thor Ragnarok, the kingdom thrives under the good king, who is then cast out by his family. The new usurper is evil, and the kingdom suffers under her rule. The rightful ruler then must rise up to defeat the usurper. He then takes his place as the good and true king of Asgard. In Lord of the Rings, the kingdom waits for the return of its king. The stand-in is evil, and the kingdom suffers under his rule. The rightful ruler then must rise up to take his place as the good and true king of Gondor. In Godzilla, king of the monsters, the kingdom thrives under the good king, who is then cast out and apparently killed by a foreign invader. The new usurper is evil, not of this world, and the kingdom suffers under his rule. The rightful ruler then must rise up to defeat the usurper, and he then takes his place as the good and true king of the monsters. So by now, you should be seeing the pattern. But why is it used so much in movies? What about it feels satisfying to an audience so reliably that it can be reused over and over again? I mean, it's not just Hollywood. You could argue Shakespeare's Hamlet is another example of this pattern. What is it about the true king motif that we like so much? A good story needs a goal for the main character. They want something that they don't currently have. The story is then the journey to acquire that thing. This often takes the physical form of a valuable object, a MacGuffin. A good example might be the Maltese Falcon, the Ark of the Covenant, or a signed baseball. But more often, the goal is less tangible, like adventure, a purpose in life, friendship, approval. These intangible goals are a lot more relatable for the audience since they are the kinds of things everybody longs for. Something that every story needs is audience buy-in. I might understand what the protagonist wants or even needs, but in order to be engaged in the story, I need to buy in why the character should have it. If I, the viewer, don't think the protagonist should get what they want, then I'm not going to be invested in the story. Here's a hot take. This is actually my biggest problem with Uncut Gems. I understand what the protagonist wanted, but I didn't think he should get it, and I didn't think he deserved it, so I wasn't invested in the story. I know, that's an unpopular opinion, but I think the point stands. In order for us to be engaged, we have to both know what the protagonist wants and buy in to why they deserve it. I think this is fundamentally why the true king motif is used so often, and why audiences almost always enjoy it. There's a clear goal, reclaiming the throne, and more importantly, there's a convincing why. It's easy for us to buy in to why the protagonist deserves it. There are 3 ways the true king motif gets us to buy in. The first way is by presenting the throne as the protagonist's birthright. Usually by lineage, our protagonist has some basic claim to the throne. Because of their family history, the throne is their inheritance. Of course, with American audiences especially, it takes more than just birthright to convince us somebody deserves the throne. Therefore, the second way is to show the protagonist is a good ruler. Early on, it is established that when our protagonist is in charge, the kingdom is protected. It flourishes. They are good at what they do, and they have a good heart. It is established that it is in the kingdom's best interest to have our protagonist in charge. But it doesn't really matter if the protagonist is good if they are impotent. And so thirdly, we always see the true king triumph over the false king. The protagonist is shown to be stronger than the evil rival. As Caesar says,
"Ape always seek strongest branch."
if the protagonist is good but too weak to fight evil, then he's not worth rooting for. It's only if he is both good and powerful that we will buy in to him retaking the throne. So the 3 ways these stories get us to root for the protagonist is by establishing they have a proper claim, a good heart, and a powerful force. We cheer for the true king when we become convinced that the throne is rightfully theirs, that things will be better with them on the throne, and that they are strong enough to defeat the evil forces. And I think those desires are in our hearts for a reason. The true king motif resonates with the human heart. It speaks to the same truths expressed in Christianity. Just like the Pride Lands flourished under Mufasa's reign, the original state of the world is good under God's reign. Just as conflict and chaos ensued when Caesar was cast off his throne, everything bad in this world has come from humans taking God off the throne and replacing him with created things. Evil thrives because we have a false king on the throne. Just as the only hope for Wakanda was for the return of T'Challa, our only hope is for the true king to retake his place on the throne and overthrow everything evil. More specifically, the central claim of Christianity is that this has happened through Jesus' death on the cross. In the scriptures, we see Jesus presented as this true king that we should be rooting for. The Gospels do this in the same way that those movies stir our hearts. Matthew goes to great lengths to show that Jesus has a proper claim to the throne. By showing that he fulfilled Old Testament prophecy, he descended from the infamous King David, and he received divine approval with the words, "This is my son whom I love. With him I am well pleased." Jesus is shown to have a rightful claim to the throne. Jesus is presented as the most loving, kind, and gracious king anybody could ask for. Under his rule, life flourishes. Nobody finishes reading the Gospels and doesn't think that Jesus would make a great king. But as T'Challa is told by his father,
"You're a good man with a good heart, and it's hard for a good man to be king."
Jesus' goodness was challenged by the powers of evil. And on the cross, as he died, it seemed like good had lost and evil had won. The irony is that it was by his death that the powers of evil were defeated. Jesus is shown to not only be good, but to be powerful. What the world saw as impotence, the gospel writers saw as power over the grave. This victory is shown to be finally complete in Christ's resurrection, where he returns to this world as the good and true king of the cosmos. And with his arrival from the dead, you can almost imagine him saying to his enemies, with the same smugness as T'Challa,
"And as you can see, I am not dead."
Would you